Tonight, removing tents. A homeless encampment dismantled in Fort St. John. Measles update. More cases announced in the Northern Health region. An earthquake. Fracking thought to have caused the quake near Grand Prairie. Well, good evening and thank you for joining us. We begin tonight with the homeless encampment in Fort St. John taken down by the city on Friday. Police were on hand as the tents were dismantled across the street from the Salvation Army shelter. Now, city officials say the camp was taken down because the city currently has shelter space available. Some of the people living in the tents were banned from the shelter, so the city worked with BC Housing and the Salvation Army to have those restrictions removed. Residents were given 24 hours notice before the camp was taken down. The Fort St. John police on hand to ensure public safety. Across BC, courts have upheld encampments being shut down if there is available shelter space in the city. Health officials confirming one new case of the measles since last Thursday, and it's here in Northern Health. The measles case brings the total to 91 across the Northern Health region. According to the BC Centre for Disease Control, they say the person was not immunized before contracting the highly contagious virus. Most of the cases across BC come from people who are not vaccinated. There's still 16 probable cases in Northern Health, but the region does not have any active cases at this time. Two people from Grand Prairie are facing 17 charges after the RCMP seized drugs, weapons, and contraband cigarettes. Police executed a search warrant at a duplex in the Scenic Ridge neighborhood. Their officers found hundreds of grams of suspected cocaine and mushrooms, 11 firearms, and more than 15,000 rounds of ammunition. And they also seized 16,000 illegal cigarettes. Police say materials consistent with drug trafficking were also found in the seizure. A 50-year-old man and a 36-year-old woman have both been charged with 2 counts of trafficking a controlled substance. They're also facing charges of possession of stolen property, unauthorized possession of a firearm, and fraud. Well, some residents in Grand Prairie felt the ground shake this weekend. Earthquake Canada says a 4.2 magnitude quake struck about 36 kilometers south of the city on Saturday. The quake thought to be caused by fracking in the area. No damage or injuries have been reported. Earthquake Canada says quakes this size are often felt but rarely cause any damage. Well, a house fire in Prince George has killed 2 people. Firefighters responding to the blaze Friday afternoon. Now, the BC Coroner Service is investigating the 2 deaths. Police say the fire is not considered to be suspicious. A grizzly bear attack Saturday afternoon in BC's Kootenay region sent 1 man to hospital. The BC Conservation Officer Service says a couple was biking along the Kootenay River when the wife heard her husband scream. Then a grizzly bear ran at her. She used bear spray and then saw a second grizzly attacking her husband. Well, she used the spray once again and both bears ran off. Her husband suffered significant injuries and had to be rushed to hospital. A sweep of the area did not locate the animal, but 3 trails are now closed. A trap set by the BC Conservation Officer Service didn't capture any of the bears. Well, the province is once again calling for more renewable power sources, including from producers south of the border.
And I couldn't help but notice the President of the United States, Donald Trump, saying that he doesn't like those windmills that produce electricity. They interfere with the views from his golf courses. Let me tell you, to all American clean energy producers, come relocate to British Columbia.
Premier Eby made the appeal to U.S. businesses after Donald Trump referred to wind turbines near his golf resort in Scotland as, quote, ugly monsters. The province and BC Hydro are looking for renewable sources to generate almost as much energy as the Site C Dam near Fort St. John. Eby adds, boosting clean energy supply will support communities and create thousands of jobs across British Columbia. A potential referendum question has been sent to a judge to make sure the question doesn't violate the Constitution. The proposed question is whether people agree with Alberta becoming a sovereign country and ceasing to be a province in Canada. The question was submitted to the electoral officer earlier this month by the Alberta Prosperity Project. If approved, the group would still need to collect 177,000 signatures in 4 months to get this question on the ballot. Back in June, Alberta's electoral officer approved a competing question that seeks to have Alberta make it an official policy that the government will never separate from Canada. Well, the number of candidates running in the Alberta riding where Pierre Poilievre hopes to win next month's by-election has broken a record. Today is the final day to submit nominations, something more than 200 people have already done. CTV's Kathy Lee has the details.
Elections Canada has listed 209 confirmed candidates in the rural Alberta riding of Battle River Crowfoot as of this morning, only 7 of whom have political party affiliations, while the majority who've signed up to run are listed as independents. This riding has been targeted by the advocacy group The Longest Ballot Committee, which also ran a campaign in Pierre Poilievre's former riding during the April general election when he lost, where the ballot had 91 candidates. The group is protesting against the first past the post system.
We're looking more at how to make candidacies fairer, how to make votes more representative of what the people want, and maybe also having more voices heard.
The Battle River Crowfoot riding was held by Damien Couric, who stepped down so that Poilievre could run to replace him. The Conservative leader, who is looking to restore his position in the House of Commons, says the long list of names flooding the ballot is an abuse of democracy.
It prevents or makes it difficult for credible candidates to get attention. I don't think it's going to make the point that the people behind it want to.
Elections Canada tells CTV News that given the unusually high number of candidates and based on lessons learned from similar past situations, it's been working on ways to improve its services to electors, and that work will be finalized after nominations close today. The by-election is on August 18th. Kathy Lee, CTV News, Calgary.
Flight attendants with Air Canada beginning a strike vote after talks with the airline have stalled. The union's key issues include pay, unpaid work, per diems, and pensions. Voting is open until August the 5th. The airline says it's committed to the bargaining process and remains fully available to resume negotiations. Now, a strike wouldn't be able to take place before a 21-day cooling off period. Analysts are weighing in ahead of Wednesday's interest rate decision from the Bank of Canada. Economists polled by Reuters think the central bank will hold its benchmark rate steady at 2.75%. They point to the recent rise in inflation and a slight fall in the unemployment for their reasoning. Analysts have also pointed to a lack of clarity around the impact of U.S. tariffs, especially as trade talks with Canada come down to that August 1st deadline. And the countdown is on as Canada seeks to reach a trade agreement with the United States before Trump's August 1st deadline. As Ottawa works to seal a deal, threatened tariffs as high as 50% are just a few days away. CTV's Abigail Beeman has more.
Canada's Prime Minister and the American President were both visiting islands and talking trade. Donald Trump in Scotland musing about baseline world tariffs.
I just want to be nice. I would say in the range of 15 to 20%.
The negotiations are at an intense phase. It's a complex negotiation.
While on Prince Edward Island, Mark Carney repeated in French that a deal with no tariffs is unlikely.
We're standing up for Canada, Canadian interests. Of course, the United States is looking out, the President's looking out for the interests of American workers. There is a landing zone that's possible, but we have to get there.
There appears to be a backing away from the tariff for tariff, elbows up, sort of combative tone.
Former Foreign Affairs Minister Peter MacKay feels we may not get the kind of deal we want.
Donald Trump has really had his way with many countries, and they are coming to heel and rolling around like kittens on a couch.
While Ontario's Premier still hopes Canada is treated differently.
A tariff on Canadians is a tax on Americans. Prices will go up.
It's not the kind of recession-inducing shock that 25% on literally everything would have been.
This University of Calgary economist says a 15% baseline tariff on non-CUSMA compliant goods would still be a net negative for the Canadian economy. But it's important to focus on the bigger picture, what happens with CUSMA down the line.
That's a much more important potential shock to the economy than a 15% baseline with an exemption for trade agreement compliant exports.
Trump's trade deal deadline is Friday, with the Prime Minister saying Canada is still engaged in negotiations. Mark Carney stressing Canada is also already a big investor in the United States as we watch other countries sign deals that require major financial commitments. Abigail Beeman, CTV News, Ottawa.
More Liberal members of Parliament are calling on Canada to officially recognize Palestinian statehood. It comes after French President Emmanuel Macron announced his country's plans to do so later this fall. And now the White House is taking a stronger stance on humanitarian conditions in Gaza. Donald Trump is pushing back against Israel's assertion that starvation is not occurring. CTV's Colton Prale has the latest.
Canada's Foreign Affairs Minister says the idea of peace in the Middle East feels more distant and that a pathway to peace requires Palestinian statehood. But Canada doesn't appear to be any closer to recognizing it.
Je vous remercie.
At a special United Nations meeting focused on a two-state solution in the Middle East, Anita Anand reinforced the country's long-standing position.
Canada believes a two-state solution remains the only viable path to lasting peace for both Palestinians and Israelis.
When asked today whether Canada would join countries like France in plans to officially recognize a Palestinian state, the Prime Minister didn't directly answer the question. It comes as the Liberal leader is facing increasing calls to do so from members of his own party.
Finally taking the critical step towards realizing a two-state solution to peace in the Middle East, recognizing a free and independent state of Palestine.
Sunday, BC MP Will Greaves joining social media calls from fellow Liberal MPs Salma Zahid and Fares al-Soud to recognize a Palestinian state. Meanwhile, as humanitarian aid trickles back into Gaza, Donald Trump is pushing back on the Israeli assertion that starvation was not occurring in the enclave.
Food, we can save a lot of people. I mean, some of those kids that's real starvation stuff. I see it, and you can't fake that.
The Prime Minister says Canada has trucks of aid at the Jordanian border, pre-positioned to enter Gaza, but that had been prevented from doing so.
He added that he'll take steps to advance a two-state solution, but one that doesn't include any element of Hamas and Palestinian leadership. Colton Prale, CTV News, Ottawa.
And to the war in Ukraine now, where President Trump says he's disappointed with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Trump is now moving up a deadline for a ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine.
I'm going to make a new deadline of about 10 or 12 days from today. There's no reason in waiting. There's no reason in waiting. It's 50 days. I want to be generous, but we just don't see any progress being made.
Trump had set a 50-day deadline earlier this month, but he's repeatedly expressed frustration with Putin for continuing his attacks on Ukraine. Trump is now threatening to impose further sanctions if no deal is reached to end the war. All right, please do stay tuned. Noah will be right back after the break with weather.